Hello, this is Dr. Dave Cornelius, aka Dr. Dave, and I'm hosting the Agile for Humanity podcast series in partnership with the Agile Alliance. The goal is to have real talk with people in the Agile community that are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as people that are white. The conversations will not be limited to people in the United States, so I will do a virtual walkabout globally to get different experiences about social injustice for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the Agile community. In the Agile community, we talk about changing the way we work, but do we change our hearts and humanity to love, meaning being patient and kind people that look different than us? Today, I'm having real talk with my friend Stuart McCalla and the Agile for Humanity podcast series. So, hey, Stuart McCalla, my brother, how are you and your family? How are you guys doing during this season of COVID-19?
Dr. Dave, we are doing okay. We're inside. That's like my dad joke. Everybody asks us, what's going on? I'm like, oh, we're inside.
We're inside.
Yep.
Things are good?
Things are good.
Good.
Can't complain. And in this day and age, there's a lot to complain about, but we're going steady. Yeah.
That's great, man. So, look, I'm grateful that you're gracious to give us your time, right, to discuss our humanity and, what it means in our lives and to people in the Agile community. When we talk, I know sometimes we go really deep and about our experiences and we share like some intimate moments and just what it's like to be Black men with Caribbean roots, no doubt, living in the space that we do. And so before we jump into the interview, tell me, what have you been up to lately as a coach, an entrepreneur, husband, a dad? What's been going on with you?
Yeah. So right now, I'm a managing partner for a group called Evolution Services. We're based out of LA. And so we coach primarily high growth startups and also larger systems as well, too.
Nice.
We do a lot of depth work for our leaders that we coach. We do diversity, equity, and inclusion and sustainability work. We have an amazing leader that helps us with that named Rudy Nickens, and who we all support. As you can imagine right now, he's super busy and we get to support him as well. Yeah. And, I think a little bit about sort of the Agile space and how does diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability, how has it manifested in the Agile space, and how will it manifest in the Agile space, and certainly within business as well, too.
And then, yeah, okay. That's good. So you're busy.
I'm busy. I'm super busy.
A little busy. Good.
Yeah.
So talk to me. How are you feeling in this time of the disruption with COVID and the outcry that's happening right now for social distancing? How is that impact you on the inside? I know it's impacting me, so I just could only imagine.
Yeah, I think the thing is, what's interesting to me is that, first of all, I just am amazed about the young women and men who are out there marching. I think the sort of snarky older people who are like, the young people don't know anything or don't do anything. I'm like, young people are showing their mettle right now, marching the time of the pandemic, marching the time of such social disruption and lack of leadership at the highest levels, right? To enact social change and justice, equity and justice within this country. So I'm certainly feeling both the despair of it took a pandemic and watching a man getting murdered on the street before this has happened.
Yeah.
Before it's in the sort of the world consciousness, and at the same time feeling absolutely proud of the young people who are doing the work and the change that's happening within society about systemic racism and systemic oppression.
Yeah.
So I hold both, right? So as change workers in the world, like we hold both. We hold the complexity of one thing and the other, and the polarity and the in between of that. And so, yeah, I'm just hopeful that our world can really come together to change this and to start addressing some of the other inequities that are currently in the world, especially around climate change, especially is one I keep thinking about. But all the ways that one human being can be oppressive to the other, which is, racism, homophobia, sexism, ageism, classism, and the list goes on. Yeah.
So these are some of the things that are keeping you up at night. As a black
They
man, you
are
can't sleep,
keeping me up.
wrestling.
I think one of the things I keep thinking about is how do you combat a system like white supremacy, and it could be any system, white supremacy, sexism, homophobia, classism, but how do you combat a system where the people that are targeted are despairing about getting something to change, and the people who are not targeted are apathetic and turn away and aren't paying attention? It shouldn't take a pandemic and seeing some horrific series of events. And of course, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on of Black women and men who have been killed in police state-sanctioned violence. It shouldn't take an event like that for people to pay attention. And unfortunately it does. Unfortunately it has so far. And so that's what's keeping me up. Like we can't have that level of trauma happening within our society for each and every oppression that is currently affecting us in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I understand, and now I ran into this new term called BIPOC, blacks, indigenous, people of color, kind of lumping all non-whites into a group. Do you feel marginalized by this, by they using that term to describe who you are or who I am or us, we?
I don't curious. Actually. Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's an interesting term, but I think what's interesting, the reason why, as far as I understood it, was that, people were saying people of color. Mm-hmm. And that was lumping in everybody, but saying black and really also noticing and highlighting the plight of indigenous folks within this country.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's in of itself a huge inequity that has never been addressed or is not being addressed in the way that I think should be. And so people of color, black, BIPOCs is, I think, a perfectly fine term. I personally tend to like people of the global majority, just to show that black and brown people are the majority of the people on the planet. So yeah. We get to claim our majority status, right? So that's I prefer that term, but I totally understand BIPOC as well too, as it's used specifically in this time. And useful distinction. Mm-hmm.
No, understood that that's how things are. But I'm glad, just wanted to get your feel on that, because I speak to some people and they go like, there they go again, marginalizing us, putting us into a group. So it's just a question to put out there. Are you feeling hopeful about the awareness of the social justice movements that are taking place, and not just in the United States? I'm talking about people who are, dispersed across the globe, out there, really raising their voices, their fist. Well, what's going on?
Well, John Lewis just passed recently, and I think I want to point out that people have always been fighting inequity in this country and in other places as well too. If we look at the continent of Africa, if we look at the Caribbean, I mean, you and I both have stories of freedom fighters in the Caribbean that have been going on for many, many generations. What's going on in the Amazon? So I just want to point out that it's like, I'm hopeful that the people that have been on the front lines for generations, prior to this sort of a social awareness and awakening, get to really see the fruits of their labor and to be recognized and know that we all have to do this work, right? We all have to do this work of ending oppression, both in society and in business.
Understood. So let's talk about the Agile community. We always talk about, hey, we have to change the way we work. Do you think there's a gap in how we should tend to our humanity in terms of love for one another? I'm talking about being patient and kind, not the
Yeah,
emotional
yeah,
side, right?
yeah,
That's the kind of
yeah.
love that I'm talking about. Can we be patient and kind? Do you think there's a gap? Because, yeah, we shift the way we work, but how about shifting the way we feel and respond to each other as human beings? Where are you in that gap anyway?
Well, as you remember very well, I think it was in 2017. I did a little talk with a group of people where we did an exploration around race, class, and gender.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
believe
yeah,
agilists are at the forefront of that if they are willing to take on that work.
yeah.
Are you willing as an agilist? Because the Agile Manifesto and the Agile principles and values are very human-centered, right?
Right.
Are you willing to take on that work, and what do you need to face and feel in order to be a change agent, not just for process or culture, but not culture being, how does the entire organization get together, but to really become a conscience for the organizations that you're in. It doesn't mean that you're like, do this now or else I'm going to shame you. It just means having conversations with people saying, what are you willing to address? What are you willing to face and feel? Have you thought about this? These are systems of inequities that are built in within our organizations, and people have talked about this for years, from hiring, from performance improvement
Yeah.
plans, from promotions, from just who do you see gets elevated in an organization. That's been around for years. So Agilists have a chance to really bring that to the fore. And it doesn't mean that you are branding yourself one thing or another. It just means, A, am I going to do the work for myself to really understand how a diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization is going to serve that organization? And what am I willing to do to help that rise within the organization? What am I willing to say, talk about, bring to various leaders, and what are the moments and opportunities in which I can do that?
That just leads right into the next question that I have is,
Mhm.
what changes would you like to see in the Agile community to make it more inclusive?
Yeah,
I know we're putting this out there, but we should have these type of, serious conversations, right?
we
What
should.
things we would like to see.
Yeah, we should. And I always think about the Agile community because it has been a place of intense connection for me. I met you there. I've met
Yeah.
April
Gosh.
Jefferson. I've met
Yeah.
tons of Black and people of the global majority Agilists that I've just really enjoyed knowing. And I've also met many allies. I'm thinking of Michael Spade, Lisa Adkins, Michael Hammond, David Chilcott, Ainsley Nye.
Oh yeah.
The list goes on and on and on of people who have been extremely supportive of me, in particular, to take a larger role within the Agile community. With that said, I think we need to look at the leadership of the Agile community. Whose voice gets promoted? Whose face gets plastered on the material?
Yeah.
Who gets to lead conversations? I think that needs some work, and I know that various organizations within the Agile community is doing that. But that needs to be addressed, and that needs to be looked at, and that needs to be faced. And there'll probably be some hard conversations around that in the next years to come. So in essence, what I would like to see the Agile community do is to really face that question: who gets to be promoted?
Yeah.
Who gets to be visible?
Right. And that's some of the work that we have to do as well, right? We have to be able to get out there like what you and I do, or getting out there trying to lead stuff, see where things land, but we have to get involved as well. Um,
That's right.
in terms of a final thoughts, what are some final thoughts you would like to share? As we have this conversation
Mm,
about, this is like heavy stuff. This is really heavy stuff, and it weighs on me a lot.
mm,
I mean, I wrote a poem that I'll send to you.
mm.
It says that I've become numb. Be woke, stay woke. So I'll share that with you. But also part of just how that made me feel based on my experiences. So final thoughts. Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah. In this time, in this day and age, white supremacy is a thing that is on people's minds in a particular way. And I would like to say that it affects everybody. So for Black and brown folks being targeted by white supremacy, there's direct effects. But white people and everybody else who is not African heritage, in particular, are internalizing aspects of white supremacy. Um, and I would like people to realize there is joy in being aware of that and taking it off you.
Yeah.
There is freedom on the other side of doing whatever work, especially around trauma, I think, right? To remove the system from your mind, to remove the system from your body, to remove the system from our work environments, to remove the system from our homes and our families, and explore what's on the other side of that. And I'm not saying I've done that, but that's the work that we get to do. And that's something to look forward to, is to have not this system of inequity on us. And there's work we can do to get it off us. And what we are going to experience on the other side of that, I can only imagine and can't wait.
Yeah, neither can I, because when we dehumanize another human being, we lose some of our humanity in the process. So, how do we get beyond that?
That's right.
Man, Stuart, thank you for your generosity. I'm always just really moved by some of our real talks, the stuff that we get, get into.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate
really
you letting me be
pleased.
a part of this. So yeah, anytime.
Well, the way it goes, like, who's the first person that I'm going to call? I'm going to call Stuart back, and have this conversation. Start there.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving your time and for sharing with the Agile community, because it's important for all of us to hear our voices and to hear our thoughts.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and I view you as a thought leader.
Oh, thank you, Dave. And what I'll just say is, I'd love to see all the people that I've mentioned talk on this podcast and see what their thoughts are. There's a long list, and I can only imagine as we bring more out into the open, like the dialogue will be richer and stronger. So
well, share the list. I have some of them on my list, but I know you have some on your list that I need to get with, right?
That's right. We'll definitely talk after this.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
So thank you for listening to our Real Talk on the Agile for Humanity podcast series. You will find the Agile for Humanity podcast series recording under Knowledge Share with Dr. Dave on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, on the agilealliance.org website, on the Knowledge Share with Dr. Dave website, and grokshare.com website, and also agileforhumanity.org. So be well, stay safe, and connect soon. We'll talk to you.